It is 6 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. Charlie, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business, we will approve minutes of the April 25th, 2011 work session.
I'll make a motion to approve those.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved by Mike and seconded by Ray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? April 25th, 2011 work session minutes are approved. Moving on to the April 25th, 2011 regular meeting minutes.
If no one else is going to, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as well.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mike and seconded by Dick. Is there any question or discussion on those minutes? It's pretty long. There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? April 25th, 2011 regular meeting minutes are approved. And finally, moving on to the April 25th, 2011 non-public minutes.
I'll move that those minutes be approved as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Ray, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Announcements. The Select Board will meet on the following dates. Regular meetings at 6 p.m. on Monday, May 23rd, 2011, and Monday, June 13, 2011. Work review sessions prior to the regular meetings will start at 5 p.m. There will be a public hearing at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, May 23rd, 2011, concerning the proposed amendment to the Town of Plymouth noise ordinance. And for anyone who came tonight anticipating that public hearing, there was not sufficient time, that we didn't have a 2-week period from the time we determined that we needed to have a public hearing in order to notify the public that we were going to do it. So the earliest we can conduct that is going to be on the 23rd. Please note that town offices will be closed on Monday, May 30th, 2011, in observance of Memorial Day. Weather observations for the month of April are available in the town hall. We've come to agenda review. First item on our agenda is under visitors do we have our visitor here?
Hey, we need a couple of minutes. He's on assignment.
Alrighty.
But he's on his way.
I think we might need more than a couple.
Okay. Need some time.
If you're okay when your picture turns if you're okay when your picture turns out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
show my granddaughter.
Okay. We have no purchase orders under committee reports. Charlie?
I have nothing.
Ray?
I'll defer till after Mike. He may touch on it when he talks, if he chooses to talk about his committee meeting with the Energy Commission.
Mike?
I went to the Plymouth Energy Commission meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago. I guess it was maybe a week ago. And it was lightly attended. They were going to elect officers, except that there weren't enough people there to elect the officers. And so we talked a little bit about issues in general and what the Plymouth Energy Commission was up to. Had a couple of high school students there, but it was pretty low-key.
Did anything come up about the work that is going on with the Madeline McElhaney with the project here in town, the Better Buildings Project?
Yes, it was discussed to some extent.
Yeah, because I also attended the latest meeting of the support group that's advising her in that effort, and it was also very lightly attended. I'm just wondering if it's the season. I don't know if the interest has waned, but it just seemed like that in previous meetings, there was probably half the people there that had attended previous meetings.
Well, there were probably 3 people who weren't there, and they all had a reason that they couldn't be there. I didn't think that it was a lack of interest so much as a scheduling conflict.
Yeah. Well, just so everybody's clear, the group I'm referring to is the Plymouth Energy Reduction Council. Just curiosity. I'm assuming it's the season then.
Dick?
I attended the Conservation Commission meeting on the 26th over at the Silver Hall, and they discussed a variety of issues. They're going to be having a boundary walk with Steve Walker from the state, I believe he is, taking a look at the properties on which they have conservation easements. A topic of discussion certainly was the gates and some of the littering and trashing of the parking lot areas at a couple of their conservation areas. Certainly is an issue of concern to them, and I think just kind of trying to wrestle with sort of the enforcement mechanism and the way to solve that problem. You know, discussion of gates, no gates, you know, the issue of gates brings in the question and concern of who's going to open them, who's going to close them. If you're using volunteers, the person may be out of town, maybe taking care of grandchildren, whatever it may be. So there's several issues that they're wrestling with, but it was a good meeting.
Very good. And I attended the final Campus Community Council meeting of the season. Most of the discussion at that was looking forward to last weekend's spring fling and then making plans for next year. So that was really not a lot that came out of it, although President Sarah Jane Steen did come to the meeting and thanked all of those citizens in attendance for their interest and support. So that's good.
Just, if I may,
Yes.
I may see the chief in the back. I took advantage of his schedule and rode with the chief for about 3.5 hours over the spring fling from 10 till about 1:30. And it was very, very interesting to see the approach they take and how they handle things. And it was, you know, sort of eye-opening, living in the village area and sort of having a lot of student interaction just in the neighborhood. It was very interesting and educational for me to sort of see it on the broader scale. And everything went, I think, pretty well. And I just want to commend the chief and the entire department for the way they handle things. It was very, very nice evening.
Education. All right. Moving on, I guess we are on to other business. First item on the agenda there is the Groton Wind Farm with Dr. Lawrence A. Major. Why don't you come up to the table, sir? Have a seat.
Am I speaking to a microphone?
Yes, please.
My name is Larry Mazer from Rumney, where we moved about 8 years ago, having lived in Plymouth since 1987. In fact, I took a turn on the Plymouth Zoning Board when Judy Switzer was the chairperson. My wife and daughter here are one of a handful of voluntary interveners that have been involved in the Groton Wind Project the past 14, 15 months. Prior to coming to this meeting, I have been in contact with the other interveners, Cheryl Lewis, who is one of the Rumney Select men, who's presently at a Rumney Select meeting. 2 days ago we spoke. Jim Budoff, the Rumney moderator, who lives in Rumney, and we just spoke as recently as this morning. Richard Redower, who owns Shanware Pottery on Route 25 in Rumney. We speak practically daily. And there's one other voluntary intervener, Carl Springer, who lives on Groton Hollow Road, but during the work week, he's mostly in Albany. Friday, just a few days ago, May 6th, the Site Evaluation Committee finally posted at about 3:47, I think, their 90-page formal summary of the proceedings, in which they found most of the applicant, Iberdrola Corporation's proposals not unreasonable. That term was used over and over again, and pretty much denied many of the requests, practically all of the requests of the various interveners, and I can only assume, as you folks know, also the town of Plymouth and the Office of the Attorney General's Office, the public counsel for Chief Clogston's requested fire equipment. They didn't find it was necessary. Our intervenor group had moved for a whole host of reasons, which may or may not appeal to the town of Plymouth, that this project should have been canceled. Health reasons, financial reasons, environmental impact reasons, and our particular group chose not to propose conditions. But the other intervenor group, Mr. Rudolph and Cheryl Lewis, they had all sorts of conditions. Just about all of them were declined. So in addition to this 90-page document that was dated May 6th, they also had the 45-page formal orders for the construction to go forward. And as we knew from a few weeks ago, communication with the committee's counsel, Mike Iacopino, there would be a memorandum at the very back, the last page of the orders, regarding the appeals process, where any party to want to go forward with an appeals process. And also, if one goes online at the Department of Environmental Services on their site map, under administrative rules, they have a 2-page document, I think it's called CO7, dated 2006, regarding the appeals. So the clock for appeals, and I'd like to assure the selectmen here that I'll try to keep my comments to 5 minutes so that there's an opportunity for talk. I won't go on and on and on, but I'm hoping for some feedback. A clock for the appeals process began clicking then on May 6th. And the appeals process, as dictated by the Department of Environmental Services, which can be reviewed, and the last page of the orders, which reviews it, gives any concerned party that's recognized by the committee, various interveners or townships, 30 days to submit a request for a formal appeal before one of the environmental service councils. There are 4 councils. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know which council would apply. The council for water, the council for air, or the council for, there's 2 other environmental councils, or whether this goes to some other council. But the 30 days probably expires, I think, Sunday, June 5th, maybe Monday, June 6th, which means pragmatically, if you wait to the very end, like Friday, June 3rd, to submit a brief, they might accept it, they might not accept it. Prudence would dictate it that if one or more parties were to submit an appeal, probably you need to do it like in the next 10 to 14 days. I don't know. We've only been guessing about every night over our meals whether you folks have been discussing this, and I certainly have been discussing it with my fellow interveners. The Counsel for the Public, the Attorney General's Office, requested the fire equipment for Plymouth and also asked for extended historical research that was not done. A whole mass of historical. And so I thought if the Attorney General's Office was asking it for the state of New Hampshire, it would be granted. But in the wisdom of the committee, they didn't see any reason for that. I have no idea what the Attorney General's Office for the state of New Hampshire intends to do. let me foray into pros and cons of submitting an appeal. Pragmatically, if one submits an appeal, and I'm guessing that the Environmental Service Department will probably accept the request to consider the appeal, but I'm guessing they probably will rubber stamp the eventual orders, which then allows the appellant to submit a request to go to the New Hampshire Supreme Court. And I'm guessing one would go to the back of the line. There's a long waiting list, and this might drag out the process. Pragmatically, this $125 million project is dependent upon, I think, 35% federal tax subsidies, which only renewed by the Congress, I think, 1 or 2 years at a time. If one goes into an appeal process and at the same time asks for a cease and desist on any construction until the appeal process is completed, this might be a spoke in the wheels for the applicant. Pragmatically, if they feel that they won't be able to complete the project as dictated by the site evaluation committee and get their 35% tax evaluation money, pragmatically they might move on. I don't know if I would hold my breath. For the various interveners, there might be certain particular issues. We have read the final summary statement by the town of Plymouth a number of times, and we have read that the town of Plymouth, correct me if I'm wrong, wrote off that were you not to receive your fire equipment, then you feel or you recommend that this undertaking should not go forward. Pragmatically, we've wondered whether the board was sort of inviting, the committee was inviting the town of Plymouth to go into appeal pragmatically with the idea that perhaps Iberdrola Corporation would feel that maybe it's cost effective to negotiate with the town of Plymouth rather than drag out the process and perhaps run the risk that they may not qualify for their federal for their federal tax grants. So it's possible the town of Plymouth might have in its interest to appeal to see whether Iberdrola would reconsider your request for equipment. That's your business. The question is whether the town of Plymouth and the handful of citizen interveners have something else in common. Issues about the environment, issues about health, issues about the finances, issues about whether this project with the electricity going, I'm told, to NSTAR in Massachusetts and not needing to be used in New Hampshire that I'm told has surplus electricity. Whether at this time, this window of opportunity, whether the town of Plymouth and the handful of interveners would care to collaborate in an appeals process. I share with you that the individual interveners are exhausted. It's been a long, unique year for us to get into this sort of process. A number of the interveners are demoralized. A number have said they don't know that they care to go into an appeal process. A number of other ones, there's only a few of us, have said, well, let's think about this. When I approached Mr. Freitas a few weeks ago to request this opportunity, I was anticipating that the orders would be posted. I thought they would be posted earlier, and that folks would have time to think, and then it's the window of opportunity to decide whether you want to go to appeal or not. So those are perhaps the pros of going forward with an appeal. The cons, it's a very exhausting process, and as one of our fellow interveners called, the wind turbines maybe are, what's the term? A juggernaut, and that and it's just maybe futile to try to argue with the proponents. None of our fellow interveners are against wind turbines. They're just against wind turbines located regarding this proposal overlooking an inhabited valley and compromising what we believe is the orderly growth of the environment and the scenic nature and the quality. 2 weeks ago, Secretary of Energy Chu, who I sent some emails to back in June, along with the direct emails to the National Institute of Health regarding health issues, came and gave a speech at Dartmouth. I think it was a timely speech, and he was also interviewed on National Public Radio, I think at their 9 o'clock morning interview show. And during that interview, he suggested that the President Obama's administration is hoping to plan for 4 million wind turbines to be constructed in this country. Prorating this per capita may not be the best model, but 320 million Americans divided by 4 million turbines is about 80 folks per turbine. And for the state of New Hampshire, 1,300,000, that's about 15,000 to 16,000 turbines. For this area, in orbit around Plymouth, the largest town, maybe 8,000, 10,000 people, that could come down to about 100 turbines. In addition to all the other town projects that are being proposed, we just learned a few days ago up in Warren that there are wind monitoring needles up on the mountains on Route 25C, running east to west, that are part of, I think,
Dr. Mazur,
oh, let me wind down, just one more minute. Okay, King Lumbers is hoping to consider leasing property for more wind turbines. So this could be a juggernaut, it could be more wind turbines, and it could be that there's no way of trying to slow down this juggernaut and try to make the committee more sensitive. Well, so I come before you then, and I conclude, to see whether you folks have decided whether you want to go forward in an appeal process. And if so, do you care to enter into some sort of collaboration with the handful of interveners? We've done a lot of work, particularly, our group concentrated on health and environmental and scenic issues, aesthetics. The other group probably was the hardest working group. They got into all sorts of issues, and the question is whether you folks plan to go ahead with an appeal process and whether you care to involve us in that endeavor. My last statement is that I personally believe that unless the town of Plymouth enters into an appeal process, there will not be an appeal. And this process will be, and this project will begin shortly. I guess I thank you very much, and I would be pleased to hear if there's any comments that you would care to share at this time.
thank you, and I think that, you may realize that we have 2 new selectmen on this board who we really, I don't think have read in too much to this whole Groton Wind Farm, our status as an intervener and all the details of it. So I think that all of us really could take some time to look back through the intervener paperwork that we filed and what our position was before we make a decision, but certainly appreciate you coming in. Does anyone have any questions for the doctor?
May I make 2 last comments, Jen? One, all the arguments that have been made for Northern Pass are applicable to Groton. All the oppositional arguments that have been made against Northern Pass are absolutely applicable to Groton Wind. I think there's many more villages, there's a larger population, there's a greater oppositional movement against Northern Pass than for Groton Wind, which is a local project. 2, I would end again by simply reminding the committee that the clock is ticking. The 30-day window of opportunity to file an appeal began on May 6th, this past Friday. Pragmatically, if one were to make an appeal, submit an appeal and to see whether it would be accepted or not, or then gird your loins and decide whether you want to go to court, I think you have to do it within you have to make that decision within a few weeks.
We recognize that.
I end then by asking if it would be reasonable if I maybe give Mr. Freitas a heads-up call in a week or so to see if there's anything he could share with me regarding this Selectmen's Committee's intent.
I might suggest 2 weeks. It may be our next meeting before we have an opportunity as a group to formulate a next step. So my suggestion is that our town administrator will probably be 2 weeks before he's in a position to be responsive.
Am I interpreting that as a kind invitation for us to return to the next Selectmen's meeting?
Address that to the chair.
I think that you could contact, either way, I mean, you could either be here or you could contact Mr. Freitas after, 2 weeks from now. But I think that's a point well taken. I mean, we're going to need a little bit of time to go through this.
So, is it reasonable for me to come back, or should I first speak with Mr. Freitas?
I'll speak with him first. If you will.
I am closing now with the assumption that you folks feel that if you need 2 weeks to make your decision about whether you want to go forward with the appeal, you feel that you have sufficient time in the ensuing week or two to submit that appeal, and if it seemed appropriate, to also request for a halt in any project commencement.
I think we'll have time to make those decisions and take whatever action we decide to take. Yes, sir.
Then I want to thank the selectmen here in Plymouth very much for affording us the opportunity to come before you and share our presumed joint concerns. I wish you a good evening all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and now I think we can step back on the agenda for the introduction of our canine officer, Bruder.
This is like the biggest camera in the world.
Stand up and see this.
Puppy.
Just a puppy. 11 weeks today.
Look at this guy.
So he's not ready to do any fancy police tricks yet.
He just had his training 2 weeks ago. He's up to a good start, though.
Based on the size of his feet, what do you figure he's gonna be when he's fully grown?
We're gonna keep him roughly around between 60 and 75 pounds. Height-wise, I mean, he'll be a big dog, but weight-wise, we're gonna keep him at a agile weight.
Hey, pup. Let's see you. What a place is this, huh?
There you go.
They might not want him eating those dog cookies, but
I know. So when do you anticipate having his, he starts his actual training?
I mean, like I said, right now he's going to New England Canine Academy in Gilmanton, and right now they're starting at a young age to go over basic obedience, bite work, tracking, and he's doing a good job with his tail.
Definitely a puppy.
But he will hopefully go to the State Police Canine Academy end of March of next year. At that point, he'll be 14 months and should be ready to go. Oh, absolutely.
Bribing a police officer, I don't know.
All right.
Oh, that's a beautiful dog.
Man, he's very food driven.
food driven.
Well, these are all natural peanut butter
Yeah.
glasses, cookies. So they're
You share those with the audience?
No, they are dog biscuits.
So you stretch out on the floor.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll do anything for him.
Oh, he's beautiful. So when can we anticipate that he will be back to be sworn in? When do you think it's gonna?
Beginning of April, he'll begin his training, and that patrol school is 12 to 14 weeks. So
June.
maybe close to the beginning of August, I would say.
Well, welcome to Plymouth.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'm sure he'll be happy to be here.
One of the things, Madam Chair, that we'd like to take advantage of Bruder here tonight, we want to get him on television and let the public know that any way that they'd like to help us, we could use all the help we could get in donations. And keeping in mind that any donations made by the town citizens can be used for an offset towards the FEMA grants that we're doing, that have been helping us sustain Bruder up to this point. And any community support, we gain extra points for that. So if there's any way that people can think, whether it's donating money for dog food or stuff like that, there is equipment required for him to be able to perform his duties, including for the cruiser itself that he has to ride in. So anybody.
And I understand checks are payable to the police dog fund.
Yes, there has been a separate account
Yes.
distinguished just for the
Mhm.
dog itself. And
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So how much does it cost to train a dog like this and equip it? Do you know?
the startup expense is the biggest expense.
The which?
We're looking at probably about a $12,000 to $15,000 startup cost.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
And then a yearly cost, I mean, it varies. Most of the stuff is food, health, but we've been working hard to try to, get donations from the community to work with us on that. But there is training on a yearly basis, but with the state police, what he'll go through is a free training. There's no cost of that, and that's donated by the state.
So what is most of that 12 to 15,000? What is
Most
that?
of it right now is the training that he's going to at the New England Canine Academy,
I see.
as well as cruiser equipment for him. He requires several, he requires a transport kennel in the back, equipment as far as a heat alarm go. When I'm not in the car, he's able to, stay cool in case an emergency ever did happen. The car would be able to alert me that the car's overheating and he needs attention right away. And equipment for him as well as at my house.
Mhm.
The dog does live with me. We are in the process of building a kennel for him at my residence, and he'll spend the time there when he's not on the road.
We don't want too much publicity, because the Navy SEALs will probably be looking for him.
Is the town gonna give him a break on his license?
And I just want to remind, again, that just seems like a high number, but we are going to the federal government and grants like that to compensate that number.
Mhm.
And we've had a lot of local support, and
I've done some community events, the Flying Monkey here in Plymouth. They're gonna do a charity event,
Yeah.
more associated with kids. We'll get the puppy down there, and he can meet and greet the kids, and we're gonna show, I think, a children's movie related to police dogs and whatnot. And various other businesses in this area have been very generous and helped us out a great deal.
That's great.
It's a great program, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for taking
Thanks
the
for
time.
coming in, yeah.
Thank you much.
Bye, Bruder.
Bye, Bruder.
Bruder. That's a cute dog.
Yeah.
He's gonna be big. Okay. Moving along, next item on the agenda is a discussion of the 2010 Census Count Resolution Program. Paul?
we received a brochure and report that summarizes the census process and how they came into town and arrived at their numbers. And just want to put it out there to the public, if they've been, first of all, I want to state that if they've been seeing any numbers in the paper, any new numbers from the Office of State Planning and what our numbers have grown to and everything, just wanted to assure the public that we had nothing to do with those numbers. It comes strictly from the Census Bureau and the study that they did. And I do know that we feel that the numbers are generally higher than what we anticipated seeing. But then again, there's no way of putting a finger on why those numbers are what they are. We have no information at our fingertips that we can look at and contest any of the numbers, either up or down. I didn't know what kind of discussion the board might want to have.
I'd sure like to get some clarification of the total number. I don't know if there's any way of breaking it out, residents versus students, or they don't do that, do they?
No.
And
I'll
and where
remind-
the 1,000 people growth rate came from, eh?
I mean, it's pretty specific in the kinds of challenges that they allow, and one is what they call coverage challenges that allows us to challenge specific living quarters and people associated with them if they've been identified as duplicates or excluded. So if the numbers are high because we think some places have been reported twice, there's potential for that, but would we have any way of even identifying which residences those are? So,
I mean, I think to really identify it as a true duplicate, you'd have to have sort of information on each unit or structure counted here, and then maybe try to link it to where the duplication also
Right.
is. that'd be pretty difficult.
Yeah, I think so.
Madam Chairman, if I look at item number 2 on the inside, it outlines the timeframe for filing a challenge, and it indicates that the clock starts ticking on June 1st, and it closes, the sunsets on June 1st of 2013. I would point out that I am signed up to attend a session at the June Office of Energy and Planning Spring Work Session on this particular subject. Might be better prepared after that to have a meaningful discussion around some of the questions, such as the ones Charlie has posed here, after that.
That would be great.
I know they points it out. I don't know if anyone else is going to be attending now. I'm looking across the way at Dick. I don't know if he's going to be there at that one
I'm
either.
not gonna be able to attend that.
Yeah. But I do intend to make that session, and certainly will report back any meaningful information that might reflect on what we're discussing here.
Maybe we could put this back on the agenda after your
After that, when is the date of that?
class.
I can't remember if it's a second or third Saturday. Give me 1 second, I'll tell you exactly. It's the second Saturday, June the 11th,
Okay.
the OEP Spring Planning Conference.
June.
Where's that?
You're down in
It's at the
Manchester?
Radisson Hotel in Manchester.
So our next meeting after that is the 13th. So
Following Monday. Good
that would be
timing then.
great. Thank you, Ray. Okay, under unfinished business, we have the Northern Pass letter review. And at our last meeting,
I'm just gonna step away from you.
yes, thank you. We had some discussion concerning the select board position on Northern Pass after the preferred route was taken off the table. And Mike has put pen to paper, which I will read, and actually this is, we've had an opportunity to review, so I'll read through it. The Plymouth Selectboard voted unanimously to oppose the Northern Pass in a vote taken in November 2010 at a time when Northern Pass was considering alternatives to the so-called preferred route. One of these alternative routes would have crossed through Plymouth. Recently, Northern Pass has indicated that it is currently pursuing only the preferred route, which does not cross Plymouth. In addition, the comment period has been extended until a date in June. Several neighboring towns and local residents have inquired about whether the Plymouth Select Board still opposes the project in its present form in light of these developments. The Plymouth Select Board has concluded that the benefits being claimed by the developer will not compensate for the environmental degradation and loss of property value that we believe will occur as a result of this project being completed as presently proposed. Furthermore, we believe the project will have a negative effect on Plymouth regardless of whether it passes through Plymouth or through our neighboring towns in the Pemigewasset Valley. Under these circumstances, I move that the Plymouth Select Board reaffirm its opposition to the Northern Pass. And that is a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Moved and Ray has seconded. Is there any discussion about this motion? Charlie? All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion stands.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any public comment this evening? Patrice?
I'm just wondering about the census figures. Could you announce what the larger number is, or that's been reported?
I don't have the exact figure.
I don't have
It's,
it's around 1,100, 1,080, 1,100 higher than
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to explain to the board that for years I've been tracking it, and when you extrapolate, we've been able to get numbers from the university of total students, and then the OEP gives us a number of residential people living in residence, which is the on-campus population. And that is, then when you find out how many kids are in the elementary school and how many Plymouth students are at the high school, it's been pretty accurate as to, over the, the years that I've been following it, to stabilize with the census figures. So I'm wondering why, it would be very interesting to find, and I think it's important to find out why they're claiming we have more students, or more kids, more people in Plymouth, because there's no other place that they would be residing other than, on campus, off campus. We know the numbers of the college have grown, but there's no other population here that would account for that many people. So.
Right, and there hasn't been that kind of growth in housing that would accommodate that many more people either, so,
Right, so that's very interesting, and it's, I've always wondered how, what the right avenue to challenge that is, because it does matter in the long run as far as all our, aid and things that we end up getting. So I appreciate your following through on that and finding out, and I can just tell you that it's always worked out to be roughly 3,000 residents, full-time residents in the town, with the numbers in the college that we've tracked the growth there, and it's always been pretty accurate. So that is definitely something off. And then I would just add, as a citizen, definitely would appreciate you taking a look at continuing to intervene in the Groton wind project, simply because that is definitely has an impact on our town with the visual, but also our fire equipment. And if they're not going to pitch in and help us out, I definitely think it's something we should try to go to the mat for.
yeah. And I think we really all need to get, either up to speed or back up to speed on exactly what the intervening documents said and,
Right.
what our position was, so that we can pursue it, because I think that's,
And Sharon and John Radigan have been working on it.
Yeah.
So they are planning our attorney is planning on doing it, Patrice. But the facts aren't out, and they haven't been able to be delivered to the board yet.
right.
I mean, is Attorney Radigan going to put together a sort of summary or a?
Synopsis.
Okay.
Any other public comment? No? Well, Paul?
I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank all the volunteers, especially from PSU, on the cleanup of the town after spring clean. I'm not saying that the town's 100% clean, but if you saw the town on Saturday night, I'm sure many people worked through the night to get it clean by Sunday morning. We did have one more place on Pleasant Street that we need cleaned today, and I was able to knock on the door, and a couple of hours later, that property was also clean. So, and this isn't I just want to put this out there, this isn't the last cleanup that the university's going to do. Rick Both is planning another cleanup throughout the town. I don't know if you have any more on that.
I don't,
Take it from you,
since you
but-
bring it up, I would like to thank everyone for their tolerance on a probably a little louder than usual weekend, but on balance, I think everything went well, and the students had a good time, and peace has been restored.
But this was the least impact that we've had on our highway department.
Is that right?
That's good.
Could I just to expand on my comments earlier, thanking and congratulating the police department for the work they did. I mean, one of the impressive things that I was able to see was, the concert let out about 12:30, 12:45, and the chief and I went up to High Street and sort of looking out over the roundabout and across the bridge, and just the pedestrian traffic patterns that they create in blocking up Green Street and Main Street and funneling the kids up High Street is certainly appeared to be very effective. I mean, one, it tires them out and it takes more time. And you could kind of look up High Street and sort of see kids starting to peel off a little bit and get into their doors as opposed to into some other more troublesome events sort of around town. So it was very effective, and I think, and according to the chief, that policy was instituted about 5 years ago. And I would say it certainly appears to be very effective. And I guess just to follow up on the cleanup, I mean, I was out about 7 o'clock Sunday morning, driving around kind of my immediate neighborhood a little bit, and there were 10 or 12 people cleaning up in various locations, so very nice.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Well, in that case, I'd like to move that we go to a non-public session in accordance with RSA 91-A:3, 2A and C, union negotiations, final agreement review, and reputation, attorney's legal advice. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I moved and Dick seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in non-public.